I thought I was just interviewing someone about the belief, and I was actually talking to someone who was involved in a very grisly true crime, and I got like a brutal description of like a clinical description of everything. Like I'm gonna have to post a trigger warning when I post
Yeah,
this.
I'll probably keep it a little bit tamer. Yeah, they don't
We
represent
can
them
put your
anymore.
back over with our stuff if
Yeah.
you like. Although make sure you get it at the end.
Yeah.
I already have a bag full of stuff from somebody I interviewed later that I ended up holding. What's your name?
Ignatius.
Ignatius?
Yep.
Ignacious?
Nope. Ignatius.
Perfect. Thank you for spelling it for me.
Yeah.
Was that like that?
No.
No, okay. Sorry.
Oh.
I've got an eraser.
Cool.
Oh, that's the first time I've heard that name.
Yeah.
My name is.
Probably heard Ignacio. It's more common. It's a Spanish version.
That's interesting, right? So my name's Kip, and Kip, which is KP, and if you oh, thank you. Do you have a belief that, or I should say, like a claim that you feel would it would change your life, maybe if you found out that it wasn't true, or
That would change my life.
or something,
Um,
or change your behavior. I'm sorry. Yeah, that'd probably be a better way.
I would say. Oh, I changed my behavior. I think that's very different.
Yeah.
Let's go with. I believe that everyone is doing the best they can, whether they want to or not, in every moment.
Okay.
It's dependent on their motivation and capacity in that moment.
Okay. Okay. Is doing. Okay. Huh. So whether they believe it or not. Okay. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious about that part at the end. You're saying that people kind of unconsciously are is putting in full effort.
Mhm.
Huh. So how could I? Let's see.
Main reason?
Yeah.
Why that's a good reason.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess what would be, out of all the reasons you have, I guess what would be the main reason for
Why I
you think
believe
that's-
this?
Yeah.
I've seen it in my own life and I've seen it in other people's lives. I
Okay.
think people are, and maybe it's a little optimistic of me, but I think everyone is doing the best they can in every moment. I think we often compare ourselves to our past, previous versions of ourselves, or we'll compare ourselves to other people. But, for example, it's pretty hard to go for a run if you hadn't eaten 2 days before.
Mm-hmm.
If you hadn't eaten for 48 hours, you're not going to be able to run as fast as you would. So that would affect your capacity. And you wouldn't be able to go for a run if you didn't feel like going for a run. So I think depending on your motivation and depending on your capacity, you are doing the best you can in every moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So. Okay. Hmm. Trying to think.
What are you doing here?
Okay. So. Yeah, and then. Okay, and I was kind of curious, but I didn't hear what you were studying here too. That may tie in, or maybe it doesn't.
I study psychology.
Oh, okay.
But I've worked a whole number of jobs, everything from irrigation, restaurant, retail, tutoring, anything to make ends meet. I've done. If there's work to be done, I'll do it,
Okay.
and I've seen it across all industries. I believe it, whether it's my coworkers, whether it's the customers we serve, that everyone's doing the best they can. It can be frustrating, but I do have a compassion for them.
Okay. All right. So let's see. What can I say? Um, hmm. So let's.
I talked to a guy.
I'm trying to think where to go.
We really.
What? Um,
Pretty well. Yeah. So it could be anything that you.
let's see.
You know, it could be a core belief. It could be playing with.
Yeah.
Just.
So what? Like if someone were to ask you,
Second
um,
station here.
uh, kind of stuck on this one. Yeah.
Well, let's flip it. What do you think about that statement? Do you believe everyone is doing the best they can in every moment?
Yeah. That's a good point. I don't know. I mean, there may be some people who, well, let's see. I guess like a question another way I could ask is, are there people that are like malicious? What about those people that are just they just are, don't care about people? Or do you think those people exist?
Well, absolutely. I think they exist, but I still think that they're doing the best they can in every moment,
Okay.
regardless of what their intent is. I think that doesn't really affect their effort that they put forward and their attempt to get from point A to point B, whether that's a virtuous or malicious intent. They're still doing the best they can.
Okay. So I guess when I hear best, I think that in a more optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would agree that,
Okay.
in general, I do like to think of it in a more optimistic. I can definitely use it to justify people and their malicious intent. But I think that I like to approach it in the sense of people are trying to be good.
Okay.
People are trying to be good. And I think oftentimes people are very hard on themselves when they fall short, whether it's of other people's expectations or whether it's of their own expectations. That independently of any expectation, they are doing the best they can with what they have in that moment.
Okay. All right. Huh. So maybe I'll kind of catch you up to where we are now.
Yeah.
So the idea is people are doing the best they can, whether they believe it or not. And my idea of like the being the best was I thought of that as more an optimistic thing. So I asked, well, what about being malicious? And I said, well, even if they're malicious, they're still putting in full effort. Yeah.
They're convinced that what they're doing is the best thing.
To
Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, to meet their needs in that moment. Whether it's that an immediate satisfaction of like, oh, I'm hungry, I might steal this. They're putting effort to satisfy that hunger. Or they might have another intent that is malicious toward another person. They're putting in effort based off their motivation and capacity, whether that's their motivation to do something that's malicious and their capacity. Some people want to do bad things but don't have the ability to do it. I think depending on motivation and capacity, they will do X, Y, or Z. And same thing for virtuous things, that based off their motivation and capacity, I might really want to go work at a soup kitchen, but if I have severe social anxiety, I might have the capacity to do it regardless of my motivation. On the flip side, I might have the ability to work at a soup kitchen, but if I don't have the motivation, I'm not going to do it. But when both of those kind of meters are at high enough level, and that's something that I want to do, that's something that's going to happen. So I think, yeah, motivation and capacity, they fluctuate throughout the day, and they fluctuate throughout our lives. And I think in every moment we are doing the best we can based off of those levels.
And what's the main reason that supports this idea?
I've seen it. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in other people. And I guess I'm just generally optimistic. I think people are trying hard.
The main reason, it sounds like, is observation.
Yeah, you can do observation. You could also there's some evidence suggesting that in social psych for the motivation capacity aspect of it. One of my favorite studies is with the radishes on willpower being a finite resource. And I think that's probably a core belief, is that lets us know that there is a capacity for us to want to do things.
Okay. So there's a limit to how much willpower we have?
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
think it fluctuates.
What impacts your behavior more? The first idea or the second idea?
I think the second idea supports my first idea. The second idea that willpower is a finite resource affects that I believe everyone is doing the best they can in every moment.
Okay. So maybe we can explore, you can run an SE through willpower is a finite, is finite.
Yeah, I believe willpower is finite.
So let's start with that and say how confident are you that willpower is finite?
I'd probably say solid 98%.
98%?
Okay.
Call it
Okay.
98%.
So that's a good place to start. We can ask what would raise it, what would lower it, what it, if you're satisfied with being at that percent confident based on how sufficient your reasons are for that.
Yeah.
So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So,
Because we're trying to figure out with you
Mhm.
if your confidence level
Mhm.
matches the sufficiency of the reasons that you're using to
absolutely.
support it.
Absolutely.
So that might be a good place to kind of explore.
okay. Yeah. So I mean, since we're so high, I mean, it's at 98%.
Mhm.
I guess it'd probably be, to me, it might seem more logical to start like what lower some.
What would lower it? I'd probably say randomized controlled studies.
Okay.
I would probably say, that are where you have a control group, kind of, you know how it is. Evidence-based research that passes an IRB board that gets peer-reviewed and published, that their methods were efficacious, I believe. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, I would say probably some evidence-based research. I think my belief in that is both observational and grounded in some research.
Okay. And then, okay, and then even though it is very high, you know, I guess I would also ask what would raise it. I mean, sometimes even when people say they're 100%, and you ask them, would you raise it, they'll still give a reason, which doesn't, maybe that doesn't make sense to some people, but so, but I'll ask,
I wouldn't
you.
want. I wouldn't want to raise it. I would want to. I'm
So
pretty.
you don't want to raise it? Or
No, I don't want to
okay,
raise it.
you don't want to raise.
I would
okay.
want to. I think 98% is a healthy certainty.
Yeah.
But also, I want to leave room in there because science evolves. The whole point of science is to
Right.
see it's evolved over time. Currently, I think the literature that I've at least read in my own observation suggests this. However, if more research comes out in the coming years, I would absolutely be willing to change my viewpoint on this.
Okay. So I'm hoping this one is maybe on track to your topic, but do you think you're 100% confident in any claim or at all?
Oh no. Oh no. I don't think I'd want to be.
Okay.
I think there's always a healthy skepticism. I also think that I'm a flawed person. I think my perception is flawed. My ability to think and comprehend things are flawed. So I think having a good 2%, no matter what, is a good buffer, regardless of how certain I am of something.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, so we did raising and lowering. I think it was a thorough exploration, and
Randomized tests.
Yeah.
That's
I would probably lower it. Yeah, if there
That
was
would lower it?
evidence that suggests otherwise. Because like there was a pretty good research. I love it. It's about radishes and cookies. That helped us realize like, oh, maybe willpower is limited. It's one of my favorite studies. I have a little painted radish on my desk.
how would things be different if that were not the case?
That if willpower was infinite, I think that would. Research-wise, you'd have to see what. I think you'd have to look at like how can you tap into it, or regardless of if it's infinite or if it's not infinite, is it actually practical? Maybe some people can dig deep indefinitely. I don't think anything is infinite, especially within a person. I think we are limited by X, Y, or Z. I don't think it doesn't quite fit with the framework of the universe, I would say. Whether, like, even with entropy or things like that, like, eventually you're going to run out of calories and your brain's going to go kaput.
Yeah, I get. Maybe a different way to ask would be like, if you were incorrect about this, do you
Yeah.
have a way to tell?
If I was incorrect about willpower being... I... randomized controlled studies. If evidence suggests, and it's peer-reviewed over years and years and years, that, like, yeah, actually we are able to replicate infinite willpower, I guess, or we're able to replicate no change in load that affects people's ability to perform a task, and it's replicated over multiple different institutions, then yeah, I'd probably change my opinion on it.
Okay. Are these tests 98% accurate?
They're statistically significant, which they have a p-value that's less than 0.05%, I believe.
So are they
So I'm putting that as my own belief, because I think 90%. No, well, I would have to look at the exact research.
If your reasoning is not 90%, 98% sufficient, are you comfortable with being at 98% confidence?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, because I'm pretty sure the research is more confident than 98%. I just give myself a 2% buffer because if I misunderstand the findings,
The research can be
like if it's 99.95, that's I'm good just going. Even if it's 99.95% confident, I would still put my own rating at 98% because I might misinterpret the findings.
so it doesn't correlate exactly.
No, because I'm a flawed human. So my ability to read and comprehend information is going to be different than the people who produce that information.
Is there anything that could get you to 99?
I don't think I'd want anything to.
To 99?
No, yeah, I don't think I'd want to go higher because I'd want to acknowledge that I am flawed and that my ability to understand isn't perfect. So I think there should be some decrease from the researcher's confidence to my own confidence because I'm a secondary evaluator.
Are you satisfied?
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm pretty happy with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel challenged? Maybe just give us some feedback about how this process went.
I mean, it's fine, I guess. I don't think it's too challenging, but I also think we might have similar beliefs on people trying and like, just general optimistic. I think I could have explained the study itself, which where I got a lot of my support in, or like the kind of like the why. Because like observational controlled studies, I could talk more about the studies. I could have talked more about what I've observed in my own personal life. But yeah, overall, I think it was good. Yes, good questions. But yeah, got to get our reps in. And I think you're doing the best you can interviewing me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, one other question too is is there a question that you think I should have asked that I didn't ask?
Yeah, why?
Why? What?
Not even just questions. I think you have more prompting. Either get me to talk more, like either ask open-ended questions or just tell me more.
Okay.
Just tell me more about that.
Yeah. The last guy I talked with said kind of similar thing to that. He would say, "Oh, you seem like you feel this way," and then just by saying that one statement, then the person keeps filling in all the details. So yeah, exactly.
That's it. But I think, given where you are right now, and you're asking me questions, or like I saw that you were asking people for help, that's where you are capacity-wise.
Yeah.
And you had the motivation to ask them to help you assist you, which is why you did that, and you had the confidence to ask them to help, and then you took that and then were asking me questions. I think it all motivation, capacity, and then in that moment you had the motivation to listen to them, and then you had the capacity to ask me that question and repeat it. So I think it all kind of works together, and as you do more and more, you'll probably get more confidence. You'll be able to get the interviewee to speak more and things like that. But yeah, that was a good experience. But I do believe, everyone's doing the best they can in every moment, whether they like to or not.
Thanks so much for stopping.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Ignatius. Cool. Don't bring up your bag. So the original claim was everybody's doing the best they can, whether they believe it or not.
Yes.
And the main reason was because willpower is limited.
Yeah. So for my notes here, I got willpower is a finite resource. So yeah, I guess that would be.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you connect the reason to the conclusion?
The reason. Okay. So the reason was finite. Yeah. Well, I guess. I mean, I can understand what he means by if it's. Well, I mean, like if you had an infinite amount of willpower, then I suppose you could say that you and then, it would be in that case, it would be easier in that hypothetical. It'd be easier to say that some people are not doing the best they can because they, with so much, they could. Does that make sense? I mean, when they have so much. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to think over that guy. But
Yeah, there was some action going on over there.
yeah, sound pretty bad.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess.
So how does the reason connect to the belief, the
Um,
conclusion?
well, I mean, if it's finite, you're gonna well, I mean, he gave the example of the interview that we're having now, where I mean, I give the amount of questioning that I have, the amount of effort that I have, and that's I'm doing the best that I can, and then I reach out to someone to ask me to help. So I've reached that finite part of me. So he kind of tied those things together that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we were looking for his help in doing in interviews. That means that we wouldn't have had to do that if it was unlimited. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right. I don't know if you saw this part, but I think you were over there, and I was kind of struggling for a little bit. There's probably a couple minutes. I'm like, okay, what do I say next? It's kind of a little not used to it or over my head a little bit.
Okay.
And then so I kind of reached out to you to ask that question. So that's an example of a limitation. If I had just an infinite amount of resources, then
or an infinite amount of willpower.
Yeah. Oh yeah, willpower. This is so the full thing I wrote down is willpower, finite resource. Okay. Yeah. So
Reaching out for help demonstrated
that
that you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Whether you believe it or not.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out how those two connect. And maybe he explained it.
Well, I mean, if you were like, I mean, if I was like some godlike being that just has just this unlimited power, well, then willpower. I mean, I could say, well, I could lower my effort, and then. Yeah. But I mean, yeah. I don't know if I'm explaining.
We'll watch it. We'll watch it back.
Okay, that's probably good.
Yeah, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Sounds like an interesting idea, though.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and it sounds like it requires something to be finite. Okay, and that's where I was going to ask next. Like, because then we went from there. We decided to explore that reason on its own as a claim.
Yeah.
And so, do you remember what reason he gave for that supported that claim?
The claim. I mean, his. What
The main
claim?
reason we turned his main reason into the claim to explore, right? That willpower is limited or is finite. Oh, and I think his reason was because everything's finite.
Okay.
If I'm remembering right?
Yeah.
And because of studies,
Um.
and the studies could have a higher sufficiency than 98%, but he would still be at 98% because of the fallibility, right?
Yeah, because Well, also because he sees himself as a secondary source, so it should be less than the main people, the study that he's going from, because there's some part that he may not understand perfectly, so he's kind of leaving that buffer in there. Then I also asked him, are you 100% confident in everything or anything?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he said, no, it's the same thing. He's
Yeah.
he would only want to go to 98. He wouldn't even want to go to 99 or 100. So,
Yeah. I may have wanted to find out if he found out that the study was less than 98%, and I don't remember if we talked about this or not, would he still be at 98%?
I think we got to run that by the.
Like, if he found out that the studies weren't up to 98% sufficient, would he still be at 98?
Yeah.
Based on the reason.
Yeah,
right?
well, so I did ask. Well, I asked both about going up and down. I mean, the first one was down because there's so much more that you can go down. Did I get that down? So I was. Yeah, that's. I don't know if I could quite get that part written fast enough, but something about evidence. But like you said, we could watch it back.
Yep.
Yeah, because this part isn't quite making sense. I'm kind of curious about his radishes and cookies example, because he brought it up, I think, a couple times. So we'll see.
It kind of just on the face of it, kind of reminds me of like carrots and sticks,
Okay.
like rewards and punishment.
Okay.
But yeah, it'd be something fun to look up.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to say about that one before I cut the cameras?
No, I don't think of anything.
All right. Cool. Nice work.
No, thank you.
You having a good time?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's worked better this year.
Yeah.
And there was some good ones last year too. I think more the conversations within the SC community, but I think now also with around other new people that I don't know.
Get some other perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that can definitely help.
Yeah.
Sweet. Cool. Nice work.
Yeah.